Hi everybody, this is Algebra 2, Lesson 58, and in this lesson we're going to learn about lead coefficients and more on completing the square. Alright, so the number in front of the x squared term in a quadratic equation is called the coefficient of the x squared term, and we've already learned about coefficients back in Algebra 1. When the quadratic equation is written in descending powers of the variable, the x squared term is going to come first, and it's the lead term. Lead means it's the first one in the row, because we're doing squared first, then to the 1, then to 0. The coefficient of this term is often called the lead coefficient of the equation. So it's the very first number that we come up with. So it's the number that's attached to the x squared term. That's called the lead coefficient. So for this one, it will be 4. That's our lead coefficient. This one, it will be 1, because that means 1 times x. If the lead coefficient is 1 and it doesn't show up, it's just implied that there's a 1 there, we say that the equation has a unity lead coefficient. Okay, so this one has a unity lead. Okay, unity lead coefficient. If the lead coefficient is not 1, then the first step is to divide every term on both sides of the equation by the lead coefficient. The result will be an equation with a unity lead coefficient that we can solve for by completing the square. So if we've got like 4x squared plus 3x minus 2, here's our lead coefficient. It's this 4 right here. We're going to have to divide every term by that lead coefficient. Okay, those cancel and we'll get x squared plus 3/4 x minus 1/2 equals 0. And now we have a unity lead because it's just a 1 in front of that x squared. All right, let's work one. Okay, so the first thing we see is that our lead coefficient is not 1, so that means that we're going to have to divide everything by that lead coefficient. We're going to get x squared plus 3/4 x minus 3/4 equals 0. Okay, so now when we do completing the square, we're going to move this to the other side. Those cancel. We get x squared plus 3/4 x equals 3/4. Now, we have to find this last term so that we can make that into, right? So we want to make it into a square. We got to complete the square. All right, and to do that, we're going to go 1/2 of our middle term squared. So 1/2 of our middle term would be 3/4 times 1/2. And that's going to be 3 times 2 would be 8. And then we're going to square that. So times 3/8. 3 times 3 is 9. 8 times 8 is 64. 9/64. So we're going to add that to both sides. Plus 9 over 64 and plus 9 over 64. All right, so we get x squared plus 3/4 x plus 9 over 64 equals, now we got to add our 3/4 to our 9 over 64. And if we want to make that into 64, it's 16. So we said times 16 times 16. 16 times 3, 48. And then we're going to add our 48 over 64 to our 9 over 64. And we'd have 57 over 64. Okay, so now we can turn this into a square. So it's going to be x plus, it's always going to be whatever this multiplied out to be, right, half of our term there, x plus 3/8. So if we said 3/8 plus 3/8, we get 3/4, and then 3/8 times 3/8, we get 9 over 64. All right, so that equals 57 over 64. And then we'll just square both of these. That's squared. Now we just have to square root both of those. And we end up with x plus 3/8 equals the square root of 57 over square root of 64 would be 8. And then we'll do minus 3/8 on both sides, and we get x equals negative 3/8 plus or minus the square root of 57 over 8. Let me double check that one. Yep, that's right. Alright, let's try another one. Alright, solve by completing the square. Okay, so first thing we notice is that we don't have a unity lead coefficient here, so we're going to have to get rid of this 5 by dividing everything by 5. Alright, so we're going to get x squared minus 1/5 x minus 2/5 equals 0, because 0 divided by 5 is still just 0. Alright, now I got to add this 2/5 on both sides. And we're going to get x squared minus 1/5 x equals 2/5. Okay, now we need our third term here, so we're going to do 1/5, it's negative 1/5, times 1/2 will be 1/10, and then we're going to square that, so that would be 1/100th. Okay, so we're going to add 1 over 100. We're going to get x squared minus 1/5 x plus 1 over 100 equals, now we got to add our 2/5 and our 1 over 100. And we got to make that into hundreds. 5 times 20, 2 times 20 is 40. That'll be 41 over 100. So 41 over 100. Okay, now we can turn this into a square, and that would be double whatever that, or 1/2 whatever that is. So 1/2 of 1/5 would be 1/10. So x minus 1/10 squared equals 41 over 100. Alright, because if we added these together, 1/5 and 1/5, no, 1/10 and 1/10 makes 1/5. 1/10 times 1/10 makes 100. Alright. Now we're going to square root up both sides, so we get x minus 1/10 equals the square root of 41 over 100. And then we're going to say the square root of 100 would be 10, so we could say that would be the square root of 41 over 10, because we know the square root of that one. Alright, so we got x, we got to get rid of this negative 1/10, so we're going to do plus 1/10 and plus 1/10 over there. And we're going to get x equals 1/10 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 10. And that's the answer to that one. So these are just like the completing the square that we were doing already, except for first you have to divide every term by the leading coefficient. Alright, go ahead and work the practice problems, and then I'll come back and work them for you. Okay, so hopefully you guys pause the video to work these practice problems. Here is A. Alright, so our leading coefficient is 3, so we're going to divide every term by 3. And we're going to get x squared plus 5 over 3x minus 6 divided by 3 would just be 2 equals 0. Now we're going to add this 2 to both sides. And we're going to get x squared equals 5 over 3x, not equals, plus. There we go. Plus 5 over 3x. Let me fix that. There we go. Now equals 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. Okay, so now we got to do 5 over 3. We take our middle term and we multiply it times 1/2. 3 times 2 is 6. And then we square it. We get 25 over 36. So we got to add that, 25 over 36, to both sides. So plus 25 over 36. And then over here, plus 25 over 36. All right, and we get x squared plus 5/3 x plus 25 over 36 equals, all right, so now we got to make those into 36s. So 36 times 2, 72. Add 72 plus 25. And we get 97 over 36. Okay, now we can turn that into a square. So it's going to be 5/6 x plus 5/6. Because if we said 5/6 plus 5/6, we would get 5/3. And if we said 5/6 times 5/6, we would get 25 over 36. And that equals 97 over 36. And then we just square root of those, so we get x plus 5/6 equals square root of 97 over 36. And I'm going to rewrite that over here. So x plus 5 over 6 equals the square root of 97 over, and I know the square root of 36 right there is 6. All right, now I just got to get rid of this 5/6. And we get x equals negative 5/6 plus or minus the square root of 97 over 6. And that is the answer to A. And like I said, these are just like completing the square we've already done. We just have to do that division at the beginning. All right, B. All right, so this one we're going to divide by 3 on every term. And we're going to get x squared minus 1/3 x minus 1/3 equals 0. And we're going to add 1/3 to both sides. And we're going to get x squared minus 1/3 x equals 1/3. Now we got to take our 1/3, that's whatever term's connected to our x, and multiply it times 1/2, and then square it. And then we're going to add that to both sides. Alright, so we get x squared minus 1/3 x plus 1 over 36 equals, now we have to add 1/3 and 1 over 36. If I was trying to make that into 36s, I would multiply times 12 over 36, and that would be 13. And I added it to the 1/36 over 36. Okay, so now I can turn this into a square, which would be x, and then we use this one right here, or half of whatever our x term was. So, and we got to do minus 1/6. So if we did negative 1/6 plus negative 1/6, we would get 2/6, which is the same as 1/3. And then if we multiplied that times itself, 6 times 6 is 36, we'd have 136. So that squared equals 13 over 36. Alright, then we got to square root those, so we're going to end up with x minus 1/6 equals square root of 13 over the square root of 36 would be 6. Now we're going to add the 1/6 to both sides. and we're going to get x equals 1/6 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 6. And that is the answer to B. All right, I hope that made sense to everybody. Thanks for watching.